Good evening, everyone. My name is Ankur Agarwal. I lead the go-to-market for the technology business for Accenture in India. I think the topic today is hybrid and multi-cloud. As more and more organizations are moving to the cloud, either to solve certain business challenges or drive innovation, multiple companies are adopting different approaches, right? And hybrid and multi-cloud is a thing for consideration. And we were having a great discussion outside while we were waiting for this session to happen. So I'm looking forward to this enriching discussion. Multi-cloud is simple. It's just basically if an organization adopts more than one cloud provider, right, in their entire architecture. Hybrid cloud is fundamentally if you're using public, private in the ecosystem. There are challenges, there are pros and cons, advantages across either of these approaches. So I'll be having a discussion with the leaders that I have here along with me. Let me ask the first question to you, Yogesh. Would you, now given the topic over here is hybrid and multi-cloud, how would you prioritize selection of a cloud service provider or managed service provider? And what are the various criteria that you would use to kind of bring that selection up?
Hello. Hi everyone, good evening. Before we in fact even think about the cloud provider or the managed service provider, right? Couple of things which we have to really look into. First of all, what is the organization landscape, right? Are you already on the on-prem or are you using any of the cloud providers? What is the capability of the managed service provider in terms of the basically skills, people, whether they are having any kind of expertise, any kind of credentials on this. Another thing which also comes is that what is the organization direction? Are you going to move to a single cloud strategy or you are going to work on the multi-cloud? For instance, basically in my organizations, we are right now pursuing multi-cloud strategy along with both on-prem cloud center as well as on the private cloud. So this way we are, I will say, pretty much insulated from the variations, from the changes, as well as we have pretty much flexibility to move from one cloud to the other clouds. The last thing which I will think is that again, what exactly a new cloud provider is going to give it to you. Is he going to give you some services which are not available on different cloud? Or is it the managed service provider who is going to bring some value addition which is going to add to the overall capabilities, or maybe add some specific functionality which is not already available. So these are the in fact few things which I will really keep in the mind.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Yogesh. Sharad, let me come to you now. While you've been driving change, technology adoption in JK Tyres for quite some time now, what are some of the considerations that you have seen while adopting a single cloud or a multi-cloud approach in your organization?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
What are the considerations that you've had while deciding between single cloud or best of breed cloud in your organization?
Okay. So before answering the question, one thing, hope I'm audible.
If you can bring it a little
okay.
closer. Yeah.
So in hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, so there are two things. We may be using different clouds for different applications. Ideally, that's not multi-cloud. Multi-cloud is when you have an application that can be used across multiple clouds. Sort of, whenever you want to do, you scale down from one cloud and move to the other cloud. So that's one thing. And though cloud is a very fancy word, but is it applicable for all? Means, as he was also telling us, that first of all, we have to see, do you have a use case? So in some cases, it happens that your current hardware is reaching end of life. Then you do an evaluation whether going to cloud is a good thing. And another case is, do you have a very sort of consistent growth, or is it there are many peaks and troughs? So means, but for that also currently some of the providers have come, not for the troughs, but for the peaks, they have come up with multiple options in which you can keep on scaling up horizontally or vertically. And keep So probably that would lead to the next question about the vendor selection. Also, we have to be both the CSPs and the cloud. So we have obviously to look at their expertise and the services that are available. Going to cloud, what happens? Some of these services are already built in, which you can just plug and play. You don't have to build them again. And in most of the cases, what you would be doing, you would be building your application, because otherwise it's a SaaS application, but you are building something that's very unique to your business. So you don't want to build all the services again. So you would be having some services, but you have to evaluate, are you using the services which are available? So services are available, so there would be some services, which would be available across all the 3 clouds, but they would be having a variant A dash, B dash, C dash for all the 3 clouds. So we have to take a call in the very beginning. So these A dash, B dash, C dash might sound a bit economical earlier. So keeping in view that if you have a multi-cloud strategy in making, so you will have to be very clear in your thoughts, and you have to think of the ROI accordingly.
Thanks so much for that, Sharad. Diktesh, let me come to you. I mean, we've had a perspective of 2 native Indian organizations, and now something coming from you as you lead global IT and cloud operations for Reckitt, right? In a multi and hybrid cloud, have you witnessed any challenges of vendor lock-in, or vice versa? Does a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud approach relieve the pressure of vendor lock-in? We were having a pretty engaging discussion outside, so your perspective to the audience here.
So basically on the vendor lock-in, right, I'll touch base on the 2 aspects, right? One is the CSP and one is the cloud vendor, right? Azure or AWS or GCP. Now, from the CSP perspective, it's still easier to tackle, right? You have contracts, you can get it reviewed, you can get it scored, you can have your exit strategy and define and tell them, this is my exit. You can have a negotiation, right, in the contracts. Now, coming to the cloud part of it, the negotiations are limited. What kind of exit strategies or, vendor lock-in is based on what is the minimum spend you are going to do, right? And what is the maximum of 5 years, 6 years spend. And slowly, gradually, you need to check with them, right? What can be the exit if I have to take? And then there would be a risk. Definitely, they will not allow you to exit. I mean, in double quotes, if they will give you a particular price, if you're exiting early, this might be the price. But on the better side of it, if you are on multi-cloud, you will have a better negotiation power, right? Because it happens in the world of the CSPs also, right? If I have 2 vendors, right, and I can go and negotiate and command if I have 2 vendors and say, if you are not able to do in this price or these services which I am looking for, I will go and use these services, right? But reaching that layer of having multi-cloud is still, I mean, many organizations have done that, but still, if you see overall industry, not everybody have reached there, because there are still discussions, elaborations happening, risk assessments happening. So, I mean, that's how I put it, right? The vendor lock-in can be only managed if you have multi-cloud, or else through the contractual commercial things. Thanks.
Just one more point here. So, means probably taking Ankur's point further, even after having multi-vendors, will the cloud providers allow us to break the shackle of lock-in?
So they will allow you in the sense of the commercial, as I said, right? So
I'll have to pay more.
You will have to anyways pay when you are taking an exit. But if you are saying that I'm moving my services from here to here, you will have a better bargain power. They might change the contract, or they might give you the brownie points to stay in the contract or leave, right? I mean, you will get a negotiation power. That's how it works. If they know you cannot exit, then I mean, there is no standard negotiation skills.
Standard negotiation, absolutely. Nikhil, let me come to you, right? Perspective coming from traditional organizations to a digitally native organization, right? OLX Autos, you had platform engineering over there. I'm sure you would also have a perspective on this. You're taking a different approach as you move forward, and you could weave in your answers, as I say. But a particular question that I had for you, what is or was your due diligence plan when you were ensuring your applications are cloud ready, or when you were looking at portability of your applications. And in your due diligence plan, did you consider an exit or a rollback strategy as well, potentially, while moving to cloud? Because I think from on-prem, you moved to multiple clouds, and now you are also reevaluating your strategy. So if you could share your perspective.
So first, I'll share that at OLX, we were operating from data center till 2016. In 2017, we moved to Amazon Cloud. In 2018, we moved to hybrid cloud. And then in 2021, we moved back to Amazon Cloud. So we burnt our hands once. And obviously, there are pros and cons of operating in hybrid cloud and single cloud and even in data center. And being in digital native business, one of the things that we primarily focus on, how fast we can deliver what the customer is expecting us. Because it's a saying, if you are not delivering fast enough, it's as good as not delivering it. Because every day, every week, a customer expectation is changing. So operating in hybrid cloud does add a toll in your deployment velocity. Because obviously, there is a trade-off of vendor lock-in and no challenge that obviously, if someone knows that you can never leave them, they will strong arm you one day or another. But at the cost of not able to deliver our customers what they're expecting sooner than later, especially in an overly competitive market. Regarding due diligence, as we recently migrated from one cloud to another, thumb rule that we advocate and we shared with everyone is that try to include as less variables as possible in the equation, because generally people are calling it cloud migration, but they're doing everything. They're migrating applications, they're migrating all the services and everything. And what it increases is that it increases the blast radius. Because at a time of debugging, you don't know what has changed. You can't even roll back because there's so many variables to roll back. And regarding the rollback or the exit strategy, first thing, do not open it up for end customers as long as you 100% haven't made sure with your bulletproof testing that whatever product you have migrated from Cloud 1 to Cloud 2 or even data center, that it's working well as expected. Because at the end, your end customer doesn't care whether you're operating from cloud or data center or Amazon or Azure or anywhere. But the amount of testing that you're putting into and that strategy decides that whether your migration is successful or not. This is generally a common pitfall that we are just putting in too much of fuel while doing the migration.
Great, thanks for sharing those perspectives. Vinay, let me come to you. Probably for a Friday evening, you're the most interesting organization which deals with brews and barns, right? So, and I'm sure people will hit the bar after this. Let me come to more security-related questions as we talk about cloud. What are some of the considerations that you had while moving to the cloud in terms of security? Did you leverage your traditional security stack, or did you leverage the cloud service providers' native security capabilities? You run security operations globally for your organization. So if you could share your perspective on that.
Sure. So what's driving our cloud strategy is the digitization aspect. So COVID is just one of the levers which is kind of fueling it and expediting it, but it's pretty much digitization. Last year, more than 50% of our revenue was through digital platforms, and that's where cloud comes into picture. As we move more data onto cloud, security becomes of prime importance, especially when data is more developed into, or applications are developed into a DevOps model. The pace is very fast, and we need to adapt. We have a defense at depth strategy which relies on SaaS-based platforms. So our strategy is pretty much to abstract our security platforms so that we don't get tied in from a vendor standpoint onto CSPs. Ideal situation to be in because not all applications, not all cloud-native applications would be compatible with these SaaS platforms because they are pretty much built in a vendor-agnostic manner, primarily evolving from on-prem infrastructures. So we maintain that flexibility where as an interim solution, we rely on cloud-native security solutions, but our long-term plan is to always use an abstracted security platform or security stack, which is SaaS-based. Now, Of course, there are going to be exceptions, specifically around things like DevOps, where the CI/CD framework comes in, and things like securing secrets from a password management standpoint is more built in into the CI/CD framework, and that's where we will have to always maintain exceptions. But our defense at depth strategy and zero ZTN, as it's called, zero trust network framework, pretty much relies on abstracted security as a framework or as a stack.
So have you kind of from DevOps kind of moved towards DevSecOps in some shape and form, or?
We're already on that journey. So from a security standpoint, we do a lot of, automation to the extent that, and again, security is evolving more from automation, it's more evolving towards threat intelligence. So our security mindset, first of all, security is a mindset, right? You need to have that with you. And we are moving more to threat intel because the threats of late, and with especially the European crisis at the beginning of this year, there's been a lot of focus. And it's more for us to understand which quarters the threat are coming and what they are, so that we are better prepared rather than us creating automation to prevent them. We would want to kind of completely avoid them, right, hitting us. So threat intelligence is what we are more focused on. And somewhere or the other, we map it with the MITRE framework so that we understand better from a TTP standpoint and we're well prepared.
Sorry, just one more question related. In the case of multi or hybrid cloud, obviously there are pros and cons, challenges, advantages. Is one of the advantage also that the number of potential DDoS attacks are reduced in a hybrid cloud environment?
Honestly speaking, if I do a threat analysis in the last 12 months, our threat has increased, the threats what we've seen is 200% more than last year. COVID is one of the reasons because, of course, threat actors are going to find loopholes when you are a distributed landscape. But our focus is more to ensure that our attack surface is as minimum as possible, and that's where defense at depth comes into picture. So the answer is no, it doesn't matter whether you're on a single cloud platform, data center, multi, the threats are manifold, and the threats are evolving. It's no more that you could have one or two security solutions which can prevent your or manage your threat. You need a full stack solution to match with your zero trust ZTNA framework, as it's called.
Thanks so much. Kapil, let me come to you now, right? With digital transformation and as workloads are moving from legacy to cloud, data is a very key aspect, right? And now data is present in multiple environments in a multi or hybrid cloud setup. How do you look at data, heterogeneity, or the sheer complexity of data being there in various environments, and how do you kind of manage these aspects of data visibility being there in a multi-cloud setup? Your thoughts and perspective on that.
Yeah, very valid question, because most of the organization have this kind of challenges all across, because they have hybrid cloud setup and plus legacy applications. It's very difficult to manage it because legacy application has a own set of problems, like they are running on an older version of OS, and patching those OS is a very difficult. Reason is because they cannot patch because application runs on that environment actually, that needs it. And upgrading application, it's very difficult because of various reasons, maybe resources are not available, and there are a set of other challenges, management challenges are there. But you talked about the data, which is very pertinent, because data security now these days is very important. If data lies in a different environment, so you have to, manageability becomes a very big problem, right? Like if I'm taking a backup, if I'm patching the OS, if I'm giving the access, so I have to go all across because all the environments are netted, right? If I'm giving the leverage to one set of data, which can be accessed by, let's say, a set of the groups, right? It means I'm running a vulnerability, right? I cannot say like I'm on a hybrid environment, so one side I'm safe and the other side. A vulnerability can be basically entered from any spot. So this kind of management is very, very, risky and difficult. Coming to the security part, again, the biggest problem is your backup, right? Taking the backup of data is very difficult because all the platforms are offering different set of backup style. If you talk for Microsoft, so they recently introduced the blob backups, which is much secure because if you attacked, the hackers cannot encrypt that backup environment. But other set of backups, like if you are in Google or if you are in other environments, they are offering different backups. And everybody is claiming they are very good. But in my experience, when I have seen a couple of attacks, but it was very difficult because hackers gained the access and deleted the backup. First thing they have done it because they did the Cobalt attack on the AD and then they got the control from the entire access, and they deleted all the backups there. So you need something, definitely very good strategy you have to place for the data management. And if you are running the legacy environment, so start thinking to basically moving on the PaaS environment, which is much, much safer. Or if you're on a AWS, so convert those applications gradually into the microservices so that like those things can be safer. Or you can look for the serverless kind of environment. These things are real practices which I'm telling you by my experience, because claiming you are safe and you can secure your data, it's not that. If you look at the just months back, like Google is hit by the biggest DDoS attack. The kind of a pipe they have created, no one basically envisaged even though, right? But they were having some certain things, so many things there, like zero-day attack. By that they have prevented, even we talk about the put your data behind the WAF. That is useless. I mean, I don't think so like WAF is the right solution, only can save your data. Because there are other ways people can enter it. It's just the eyewash like to basically hide your IPs, that's it. Nothing more about that. So you have to have right provisioning if you're really concerned about the data. So I want to bring this perspective so that like we can correlate it like how important data is for us.
Thanks so much. Please.
So I just want to add to that. So backups is a very good topic because it's part of BCP, right? It's part of business continuity. So one of the things what we are exploring is an independent backup strategy. So an external backup, not native to cloud. And that helps us somewhere or the other maintain the portability of our data, okay, and preserve it. So in case we have a problem in one of the cloud platforms, at least we have a data which is available away from that cloud platform which can be restored. And coming to the point around WAF, I totally agree. It's, as I said in my closing comments earlier, that a single security solution will never be able to protect you. You need a full security stack, and that's what defense at depth is all about, right?
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Yogesh, let me, I'm conscious of time as well, last question maybe, and then we'll go to the audience. What are the considerations that you would have had while opting between microservices-based containerization as a service kind of an architecture to typical infrastructure as a service architecture? And a related question, any particular functional area within your organization that you would want to adopt containerization as a service first?
See, in this case, there is no straightforward answer because it actually depends on what kind of scenarios we are talking about. But again, two areas where we typically look at is what is the projection we are talking about for this particular software or the solution. If we are going to be okay with a lock-in period, maybe 2 years, 3 years, in that case, infrastructure as a service may works out to be cheaper. It can be more secure because it will be also guaranteed to be patched by its own provider. Versus where you are really looking to migrate something onto the newer platform or on a microservices, where it may be used by number of other softwares within the organization, or where you are going to offer these services to your partners. So basically, in that case, it makes basically more sense to go for a containerization on an existing cloud service. So it depends on that.
Thanks so much. Any other perspective, any other panelists would like to share?
So, as you're talking about hybrid cloud and all, so there's one thing that I've experienced with respect to, as you be talking about microservices, container native and all. So, there's one thing that we generally forget about, the time that it will add. I'll use a small analogy. Let's just say that if I'm saying that there's a crack in this room, and you have to figure out that crack, you might take days. But if I just tell you that there's a crack on this, you'll figure out in a seconds. And that's the time that when we're talking about the cost overhead, we are forgetting that the cost overhead in terms of business, it's going to impact us. If business releases something in one day, it may generate X revenue. But if the same thing they're releasing in 6 months, that's also the potential revenue that we are losing. And that's one of the things that drive us that, okay, in theoretically, and as Sharad has mentioned, that when we're calling a hybrid cloud, the definition is getting too generic. But in reality, when people are running the hybrid clouds, it's basically running different verticals in different clouds. But when we are going with pure hybrid cloud, it ultimately putting us on the back foot with our innovation. It's just slowing down our innovation and ultimately our customer experience.
Thank you. Just one more thing, right, on the backup, what they were referring to. So Reckitt has gone through this ransomware attack, right? And at that time, I remember 45 sleepless nights we had to go through to bring it. And there was one of the key applications which was very critical for even running a factory or something, right? Luckily, at that time, we had one of the backups lying in a mainframe system. And we were able to take that and we were able to restore systems and everything else started working fine. But on the backup front, right, I think that could be one of the key things to keep it completely secluded from your connected network so that you can actually restore it. I mean, we faced it in real life, so I just thought to brought him. Yeah, thanks.
I like to just touch upon the stats of the attacks now these days. Like if you, one of the Microsoft report says is like 47 trillion attacks in a year we are facing it now these days. And only 36 billions are addressed. See, so that's interesting. So kind of, I mean, most of the organizations are compromised or are in the line of a compromising because vulnerability resides there. Because in my case, if I tell you, like the last attack, what I had it, like 7 months, like the guy was sitting there and reconning my entire network. Post that one D-Day, he fired the trigger. So like we should all take care of all those things.
Thank you. I know we're kind of over time, but any questions from the audience for the panelists here? Okay. If no questions, I think we've just consumed the time.